I'm just checking on these sunflower seeds because it is time to harvest them, maybe even past time to harvest them because the birds have been eating them. And these are just the many different things that we have to do as we get ready for the fall garden. There are so many different things that I need to show you that's going on in my garden space, like these sunflower seeds, for instance. They have pretty much gone to seed. I can tell it's time to harvest them because they've just completely limped right over. And so I need to harvest these, clear them out. The birds are eating the seeds, but I would like to see if I can harvest a few of these. But in order for me to get ready for this fall garden, I've got to do a lot of different cleaning up because there's some new plants that I want to put down into the fall garden, but I got to get everything all, basically got to get that kind of cleaned up. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I have to do as I get ready for the fall garden. Also, the new seedlings that I have that I actually got ready and started on my patio. So I want to show you what I will be transplanting in the next week. If you've been following me, then you know that I have cattle panel trellises arched inside of my garden enclosures. And in these garden enclosures, I have had squash plants that were just vining up through it. And they were growing all the way outside of the garden enclosure, and you would see it. There was actually a cucumber plant that was growing around here. There was a burger squash plants that were vining all through it. I have tomatoes still on the other side, but I had to pull a lot of stuff out because the vine borer started attacking the plant. The plant actually produced all that it could, and it was just time to pull it up. I harvested a good amount of burger squash, which I am happy. And so, but I just still got some other work that I need to do. Some of the seedlings that I have that are growing, that are going to be transplanted, they're right now on my patio, but they're going to be transplanted into my garden after we get through this heat wave next week. We're going to be having between 96 to 100 degrees next week in zone 6. And so I just want to make sure that I keep them on my patio. I don't want to put them out in a vulnerable situation right now. Now, I do have some seeds that I did direct sow, and those are going to pop up during the heat wave. So either I'm going to protect it with a cover, or hopefully the trees that are kind of over this area will give it some shade, some cover. But I'm going to do what I can do to protect them during this heat wave. One of the things I need to do is go around to all of my flowers and start harvesting the seed pods. Do you see this right over here? That is a seed pod. And if I go ahead and pick the seed pod off, just like that, you will find a bunch of seeds inside of the seed pod, like a lot. So I need to go around and just clear up a lot of the seed pods that are all over my flowers throughout my garden. Because if I don't, they're just going to reseed itself, and then I'm going to be having to pick them out or just allow some of them to just grow on their own. But that's what I've been doing. I've been noticing some flowers and other vegetables, plants that have been reseeding itself, like actually was an herb plant, the borage. And so I just need to go around and do things like this. Take these up, clear it out, save the seeds so I can use them for next year. Or because there's so many that come out of one seed pod, you can even just give the seed pod to someone else who wants to plant in their garden for next year. Now, you know it's tomato time. It is time to harvest tomatoes. And so I've been doing this a lot. Now, in my family, I'm the only one that really likes tomatoes, but look at this. Many of these have started to split already due to the rain. We're getting some really funky rain around here because it will be really dry for a long time and then it will just pour rain for a few days. And so it really has been inconsistent, and it will rain really heavy and then it'll be dry, and then rain really heavy and be dry. And then that's when I'm noticing where my tomatoes are, even starting to split. They taste really great. I can still use them, but sometimes I'm not able to get out here when I want to harvest them. But these are the things I got to do. Go ahead and harvest the tomatoes. I have cherry tomatoes, and then these are crimson tomatoes. So I'm gonna start harvesting these, and even though some of these are looking kind of like orangey, they're not fully red ripened, still a good time to go ahead and harvest it, put it on the counter, and just allow it to continue harvesting on its own. Have to clean off a little cobweb. Now here are the cherry tomatoes. Really easy to harvest. And do you know who also loves my cherry tomatoes? Coconut. Now, this is his favorite thing to eat, tomatoes. He loves to eat tomatoes. Don't you love tomatoes? He loves tomatoes. That's his favorite. Good job. Now, lemongrass. Now, you know this is one of my favorite plants to grow because I can make a wonderful tea out of it. I drink the tea every day or almost every single day. And I dry it out. I turn it into a powder or into chunks so that the chunks I conserve for throughout the winter, pretty much throughout the rest of the year. When I want to turn to a powder, I can do that. But I turn a lot of it into powder once it is dry so I can use it as tea. Then it's less of breaking down. But I love lemongrass. So this is something that I'm going to make a full video for you all so you can see how I actually harvest the plant. But oh, I wish you could smell this. Lemongrass smells so good. I hope you had a chance to grow some this season. If you have not, really consider it next year, or if you still have warm weather in your zone, go ahead and find some lemongrass and start planting some in your garden. So this one started to blush. I know I picked it early, but I want to go ahead and start picking some of my pepper plants. Some of them are come fully red as well. Here's one, for instance, that I just picked, a little red pepper. They're usually really sweet, especially when they are red. In this garden enclosure, if you've been watching me, you'll see that there's a lot of things that I've really cleared out. Like here I had squash plant, and that one had vine borers. And so I pulled it. This one also had vine borers, but I was able to save the plant. With this one, I actually decided to keep it, cut it open, and guess what was able to continually grow on there? I've got a zucchini squash here. I got to harvest. Now I plan on putting in a new squash plant, but that won't be until next week. But I'm going to pull this one so that I can prep the soil for the new squash plant that's going to go down for the fall, because I still have enough days to be able to grow another squash plant. In this garden enclosure, I had a lot of the squash plants that I was talking to you about, like the Burgess squash that was growing, and I cleared that out. That was all growing here. The cucumbers were growing at the back, and then over there I didn't have anything vining, but I could if I want to. But everything has been cleared out. And so I actually went ahead and already dropped in some carrot seeds. And also in the front here, where I also had a yellow neck squash, I had that there, pulled it up. I planted some kohlrabi or turnips in this bed. I still need to label them. I know I say label them. I am going to label them, but I ran out of labels, but I'm going to label it. And then on this side, I had either the kohlrabi or turnips. It's either kohlrabi on turnips in both of those round beds. I know what it is. I noted it down on a piece of paper. I drew the graphs out. So I know what needs to go there. I just need to mark it with something so that I know when I come out here, I can tell you exactly what it is I have growing. I have a lot of thyme. This is called big thyme, also known as broad thyme. It tastes almost like oregano, just something that you can use in pasta dishes, really in any kind of dishes. I've been using it in anything. It has a very great flavor. I usually dry it and then preserve it, blend it so that it turns to a small powdery chunky type thing that I can use easily in my cooking. You could also use it fresh, but it's also at different spots there as well in my garden. Now take a look over here. So let me tell you the story behind this. I had a friend of mine who gave me a small clipping of this. Now this is the power of propagating. One clipping and that was it. Turned into this. Okay, let me repeat myself. One clipping, I propagated it, and it turned into this. Now this really amazed me because first of all, it was like my first time growing Big Thyme. And I didn't realize how aggressive this plant can grow. But it's so easy to take care of. It doesn't require much. You could literally dry it out because I had it in my house actually propagating first. It grew throughout the winter in my house. And there was a whole month where I didn't water it because I just didn't have time. I just left it and I was, busy with other things in my life and busy with taking care of other plants. I was like, oh, I forgot to water that one. Came back, it was dry, but there was still moisture in the roots. And I applied water to it and it grew back. And then look at this outside. I thought the plant was dead. It was not dead. So one plant has multiplied and multiplied and multiplied itself into this. So this is called Big Thyme or broad thyme. But I'm pretty amazed by it. But what I would suggest probably would be for it to grow in a container if you don't want it overtaking your bed. Because I had some peas growing in here with it and it took over the area of the peas. And so I had to pull the peas out. I know that it was just stripping and taking all of the nitrogen or the nutrients, whatever it was doing, it was taking something, and so the leaves started drying out. It just didn't do good for the plant because the plant was growing well, the peas were, and then this thing started taking over. So you may want to really contain it to just solely in a raised bed on its own or in a container, but just be mindful of what you grow it with because it will take over. But I'm going to go ahead and harvest that because it's a lot that I got to take out, and I got to take this out to make some room. Well, I'm not going to put anything else in there, but if I decide to, I just need to keep it contained with the growing over. And then over here on this side, I've got potatoes that are growing as well, this potato plant. I haven't pulled up any to see how it's doing, but I know it's doing well. It's growing. This is now finally starting to turn yellow, so it's starting to die back. It was flowering weeks ago. It's no longer flowering, so it's doing well. So that's a good sign. Tell me that it's dying back there, and so it's getting ready, closer to harvest, but it's not time yet. We've got more flowers. Like I mentioned, there are flowers everywhere. And then here's the rest of the garden enclosure, and then the first one that I showed you over there. This is a giant blue leaf lettuce. Do you see how tall it is? That's very tall, much taller than I am. And so I want to do some more harvesting of this before the heat wave so I can either preserve the leaves by blanching it, putting it in the freezer, or going ahead and cooking some of it. I got a lot of Swiss chard that's in my garden, throughout the garden still, and I could go ahead and harvest some of those leaves. I don't want to harvest too many, but because I don't want to leave the plant bare. I want it to be strong enough to make it through next week, but I've got that too. Y'all, I got a lot of things here, and it's a blessing. It's wonderful. I'm really grateful. But I just want to show you this plant. It's really wonderful. But if you've never grown it, there you go. It's also beautiful just to look at when you look at it as your garden because it just grows so tall. And I'm like over 5 feet tall. So what a beautiful plant. And this right over here is growing still. It is the Scarlet Runner, which I'm pretty shocked that it's still growing because initially it wasn't producing any beans at all. Any beans. And I planted this back in May. 0 beans. I harvested 1, maybe 2. Well, right now there's a bunch of little pea pods that are just popping out. So I'm glad I left it there because I was contemplating of pulling it at one point, but I'm glad I left it there. I left it there because it's beautiful to look at. The flowers are really pretty, and now the bees are just all over that plant. So it's doing really well for the bees. So I left it there just for the beauty of it, and it's finally producing. Lesson learned, be patient with your plants. Sometimes they just need to produce in their own time when they're ready. Starting my fall garden seeds outdoor on my patio. In this garden space, I'll be growing lettuce, radish, sugar snap peas, bush beans, scarlet runner, beets, carrots, kohlrabi, turnips, summer squash, winter squash, like spaghetti squash, kabocha, hopefully the kabocha if I can get the seeds, collards, cucamelon, And the root vegetables will be planted in ground first, but the other vegetables will start on my patio in those seed cells. I hope this video was helpful, and really the point is just to get in your garden, tidy it up, clean it up, harvest anything that you may need to harvest, trim whatever you may need to trim as you're getting ready for your fall garden, just so that you don't have some of the other carryover stuff carrying over into the fall garden. Do as much cleanup so that you have a nice clean fall garden to plant in. And if you're getting ready with any kind of young baby seedlings, if you can wait an extra week, because if you have a heat wave coming towards your area, then if you got the time to spare before your first frost date, go ahead and do that. If you don't, that's fine. Just cover it up and protect your young seedlings or your little seeds that are going to sprout. Protect them with either trees or some kind of cover shade cloth that will cover it over. Like I mentioned, I've got mine on my patio, and so I'm going to leave it there until next week, and then once we make it through the heat wave, I'm going to plant it in there, and it should do just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and continue filling up this basket and obviously some more baskets, but keep following me on my channel. I will continually send you some more updates. But happy gardening, enjoy your time, and remember to grow leafy, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.